Ah, yes, indeed, the tea. You must have a cup of tea.
Hello everybody, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel if you've already been here. This is a book review, as you may have been able to tell from the title. It's a book review of a Becky Chambers book. So Becky Chambers is a really interesting author, I think, with quite a unique narrative voice, a style that's kind of her own. I think she's going to have a big influence. She may have an influence already, but I think you're going to hear people talk about how Becky Chambers has probably inspired other writers that come through in the next few years probably. But yeah, I think she's got quite a unique way of writing, and it can be quite divisive. So some people really don't like the way she does things, and some people have absolutely loved it. And I think she's pretty popular, but there are people who seem to be one of those camps. I really like what she does. I've read everything that she wrote up to this book that I'm about to talk about. So I've read the 4 books in the Wayfarer series, and a novella called To Be Taught If Fortunate. So all of those 5 books are science fiction. This is a science fiction book, and the only other thing I think she's written is a sequel to this, which was also science fiction. So she's absolutely 100% science fiction writer, writing in a way that you don't get very often with science fiction. So heavily focused on characters, not masses of action, not really much crisis or peril, jeopardy, but lots of character development and lots of philosophy and discussion about society and relationships, and very much a more positive and optimistic vision of the future in what she does. So this is a book that came out in 2021. It's called A Psalm for the Wild Built, and it's got a little subtitle, A Monk and Robot Book, and it is about a monk and a robot. A monk and a robot. And it's a very short book. As I said, it's a novella, and it's you can only get it in hardback, so it's very expensive. But I'd heard loads about it, and anyone that likes Becky Chambers was saying that they really love this, and I'll talk to you about what I feel about it. So, as I said, I was very excited to read it. I'll tell you about the plot. So, that is Sibling Dex. Sibling Dex is a non-binary monk who is dissatisfied with their life and their normal kind of preoccupation of going around, travelling around, making tea for whoever wants some tea and a chat. So a tea monk. So they're a tea monk, and they are feeling dissatisfied with their life, and they go off on a journey to see if they can find themselves, I guess. And they meet up with a robot. So the robots in this world, this world, by the way, is a moon called Panga, which is it Panga? I think it's called Panga. I should have checked this before Panga. This is set on a moon called Panga, and on this moon, you've got like atmospheric conditions are pretty much like Earth, and you've got this futuristic society where robots have become self-aware and sentient, and because of that, the humans said, we don't want you to be slaves, you can do whatever you want. And sort of they carved an area which was like their area, kind of divided the land up, so like the robots lived separately. So when Sibling Dex meets the robot, it's a kind of a big deal for Dex, and actually a big deal for the robot as well. And that kind of is when the book kind of starts getting some momentum, I think. So that's probably about 40 pages in or something. But there's lots of introductory stuff before that. So, as I said, her style is all focused on characters and not as much about action and peril. I have defended that kind of style with the stuff about the Wayfarer series, because I do think I think they're brilliant, and I think that the there's enough peril for the characters to bounce off what's happening to them, to develop their relationships and their knowledge of each other and that sense of understanding each other more and that kind of thing. And I think that's really strong. I think that's what she's really good at. And I think it's really refreshing to see that kind of science fiction. You don't see it much or at all. This I was actually quite disappointed by. So I enjoyed it, and I still think what she does is great, and the general approach of how she's writing this and that depiction of the future and the unusual setup of the T-Monk and this robot that's been living apart from humans, and some of the dialogue is beautiful. The actual prose is lovely, all that sort of stuff. Lots of positive things to say, but I wasn't as engaged in it. I wasn't as connected to the characters, to these two, and their journey isn't as much of a journey as I found in other books by her. So literally all of the books by her, I think, are more successful developments in character and the characters having a character arc. So there is a character arc. There is sibling Dex is grappling with this frustration that they've got, and it is in the prose, but I just think it's a little bit more slight than the stuff that's in her other books. And I won't spoil it by telling you what happens, but I think I was hoping more would have happened. So this is not Becky Chambers' criticism, because people have levelled that at Becky Chambers on the other books that I think are great, that I do think enough does happen. But I did feel like with this, it didn't match the others. But I love the way she writes. I love the style. It was a very nice, sort of pleasant read. I actually think, I was thinking about this, and I think this is closer in an experience, in a reading experience, to Legends and Lattes more than the other Becky Chambers books. I think the other Becky Chambers books have got more, they're slightly more intense. They're not intense really, but slightly more intense. This is so not intense that this is such a relaxed, chilled read that it reminded me of the experience of reading Legends and Lattes, which is a completely different book, fantasy book written by a different author. So I feel like they're quite similar in tone. So if you like Legends and Lattes, you'll love this, I think. Although I did like Legends and Lattes more than this. I think if you like what she does, you should definitely read this. I think the Wayfair series is my favourite thing she's done. And I do think the other novella is better than this as well. I don't know. I probably will read the other Monk and Robot book because it's her, and just to be complete. I do absolutely like what she does. And I think she's a really interesting voice in science fiction at the moment. But for me, this kind of has the stuff that people have criticised her for in the other books, which I don't agree with. So when people have said there's not enough happening in the other books, or it's too chilled, there's not enough peril, that kind of thing, I think that's true for this one. I don't think it's true for the others. So yeah, I found this quite different. And once they meet, there's a little bit more inertia in the book, and I like that. The dialogue's really nice, and I did really like the dialogue between them, but I was hoping for a little bit more of a revelation, maybe for sibling Dex, maybe some revelations for the robot's more understanding of humanity, maybe, and something about that journey, maybe. But I didn't feel like I got that personally. So yeah, slightly disappointed, and which is a shame, because I really do think Becky Chambers, as I've been saying, is awesome. So there we go. I don't know. I mean, I don't actually think I've heard anybody say anything negative about this book. I think you only read it normally. You get to this book if you've read and liked the Wayfarer series, really. So I might be a bit of a lone voice, and it's quite unusual for me to be a lone voice in a negative way, because I normally like stuff that other people don't like. But yeah, I was disappointed. So there we go. I'll get over it. Doesn't matter. I'll get over it. Don't panic. Don't panic.
future.